All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome, 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 welcome. Good to see you all here. I just put up that little sign in the beginning so people know they're in the right place, and actually, it helps people get here. I put up like about 5 minutes early before I start, so that YouTube tells people about it, so we all get in on the action. Let me get the camera set up there well, and all right, welcome everyone. Welcome once again to Satsang. Oh wow, let's see. Wildcat Dale, hello my friend. Alessandra, hi Alessandra. John Sheehan from Ireland, good to have you here, sir. David Rose in Massachusetts. Rosario in Spain. Daryl Sanders, is this happening? It is indeed. You said Soane, so it's actually Spain. Ah, that's why somebody said, "Oh, I was going to ask where Soane was." Eva's here, and Johanna. Hi, Johanna, from we have Mexico and Spain and Ireland and California, which is kind of its own world. Hey, Jeff, welcome. Glad to have you with. And October Paul, hello, sir. Great to have you. Portland, Maine. Boy, you're way up there. David and Elaine, my good friends in Southeast England. Wash hands. So are everybody's hands clean? Right? Are your virtual hands clean? There's Sally from Southeast England and John Watson. Trevor, hello, how are you? Vancouver, Canada. Anja, where can I find the replay for the call on Saturday? I haven't, the call on Saturday. It was actually on Friday, and I haven't had a chance to post it yet. I just got it all set up. And Ape 108 from Germany, Cheryl from Philadelphia. Hello, everyone. Thank you for letting me know. And if you're new here, if this is like your first time or first time or two at Satsang, please let me know. It's always useful for me to know about it. Hello from Ursula, Madeira Island. And wonderful. Barbara, hello and good night. Yes, that's right. It's later there. It's what, about 9 or 10 o'clock where you are. 1 o'clock in the afternoon where I am. So we have Ivalo from Bulgaria, Mary Sykes from Niagara Falls, New York, almost Canada. So wonderful. So let's all settle in to our weekly opportunity for self-exploration. Although these days, with all of us not going out into the world as much as we were used to, this period of time of can be a really wonderful opportunity to go within, to become increasingly contemplative and intuitive. There's a lot of information going around out there. There's a lot of misinformation, a lot of disinformation, a lot of intentional attempts to manipulate and distort. The news media is almost worthless. You get better information on Facebook, but you have to really sort. You really have to sort through it because the opinions are all over the map, and you can never be quite sure. So where do you go to get real, genuine information? Where do you get the real deal, the real scoop, right? Well, the answer is in here. No, it's not going to be details and facts and newsy kind of stuff. You're not going to find that stuff in here. Thank God. It would be so cluttered. Hello, Carrie. Good to have you. But what you do get when you turn your attention within is the direct experience of the reality of your own being. And that is the whole point of turning within. That's the reason we do it. I mean, it isn't a luxury. It's not a cool thing to do. It's not philosophical. We don't turn within to feel good, right? Because sometimes if your attention really goes inward towards what's really happening inside of you, it doesn't feel so good. Oftentimes there can be a lot of chaos and a lot of confusion and a lot of all sorts of things going on inside of us. So, but what we do find there, if we're willing to persist long enough to get through the habitual noise that is the mind, and the ups and downs that are the emotions, we come to a place of a deep truth. But this, the truth we're talking about in satsang, and remember the word satsang simply means communion with truth. The truth we're talking about is not facts and figures. It's not that kind of knowledge. It's not an understanding of the kind of knowledge of knowing, of one thing knowing another. It's a direct knowledge of knowing yourself as you actually are. But in order to know yourself as you are, you have to clear away all of the layers of belief and assumption about what you are. You have to come to see that which you're not. And it really is that simple. In Zen, they say, don't seek the truth, just drop your opinions. Because remember, truth is something that's always there. You don't acquire it, right? When we're talking about the knowledge that is, the relative knowledge of knowing something, even useful knowledge, right? How to work a computer, how to drive a car, useful knowledge. Nothing wrong with that. That it's very useful stuff. But the truth of your being is not like that. It can't be discovered in that way. It isn't a knowledge that you gain so that you have a better concept of yourself. That's really kind of the self-help approach, which is valid, right? To become more functional, you trade in a less functional version of yourself for an upgrade, right? You're going to get, me version 12, and it's going to have all these improvements in it, right? But it still doesn't really tell you who you are. This kind of truth is different. Everything in the universe can be known through our traditional way of subject and object. There's me here, there's the thing over there, I can look at it. I can look at this piece of salt from my salt lamp, right? And I can recognize it. I can look at my car, my clothes, the room that I'm in. That's the relative knowledge, or the knowledge, a subject-object knowledge. And all of our modern day world, science, engineering, is all based on that. But this knowledge, the knowledge of yourself, can't work that way. And why is that? Because to know yourself, you can't step outside of yourself and look at yourself like some kind of an object. Everything else in the universe you can. I mean, it's mind-blowing, isn't it? Everything in the universe you can know as a subject-to-object relationship. The only thing you cannot know in a subject and object relationship, and the very most important thing to know, is yourself. There's nothing more important to know than yourself, who you are. But you cannot know it through any of the normal means by which we acquire knowledge. This is what is meant in all the great traditions that talk about going beyond the mind. It isn't some kind of an abstraction. It's not like, you just kind of ohm yourself to death, right? What it means is you realize that there is an end to that kind of knowledge. Perhaps you've heard the phrase, the term in Sanskrit for what we refer to in English as non-duality is Advaita Vedanta. I keep always slipping and call it Vedanta. The window in Spanish, banana. Anyway, Vedanta. And the word Vedanta means the end of knowledge. This is why withdrawing during a meditation, those of you who have done meditations with me, I'm always withdrawing ourselves from thought forms, thought in all of its forms, right? Which is the past, the present, the future, memories, associations, characterizations, names, history, um, everything, all the knowledge, which is all knowledge of the mind, which is useless in the existential quest. If you want to know who you are, you cannot look there. Now that's really, really kind of bewildering for us all because we're so used to looking there. I mean, that's the way we're all educated. That's what they teach in school. They don't teach non-dual inquiry in schools. They should, but they don't. They teach that Vedanta. They teach Danta, not the Vedanta. They teach the knowledge that is limited and relative. They do not teach the knowledge that is absolute. And the word for absolute knowledge in Sanskrit is jnana, Jnana, which is also recognized as the eighth path of yoga. It is the direct inquiry into the knowledge of yourself without making reference to anything else. And that's the only thing you can do. The moment you make reference to something external, you've gone back into the classical analysis. You've gone back into the model of subject, looking at object, and then describing that object. But of course, we can't ever really know that object, can we? There's always the distance. So we can know about it, but there's nothing in the universe you can actually know except yourself. That's the only thing you can know. And it simply starts with just the direct intuitive sense of your own being. If I ask you, do you exist? I assume that everybody listening to me would say, yes. I would then ask you, how do you know? In between the time when I asked you, do you exist? And you answered yes, where did you look? Notice it was just an intuit. You didn't really look anywhere, that is spatially, right? You didn't kind of look around the room to see where you were. There's this very subtle but undeniable sense of I am. As a matter of fact, without that I am, how could anything else be known? To me, the idea of a universe without consciousness is completely nonsensical. It's inconceivable. How can anything exist without something there to perceive it? Now, we imagine there was. We imagine the Big Bang 13.8 billion years ago, and somewhere along the line, about 4 billion years ago, little things began to emerge in the oceans on the Earth, and eventually, beings, Tyrannosaurus Rex and all sorts of stuff, and eventually the humans, and suddenly, one day a human goes, me, this sense of conscious awareness. But all of that, the entire theory of Big Bang and all the equations, everything that go with it, are all appearing in consciousness. They're all the product of consciousness. So the idea of a universe without something consciously aware of it, to me, is the most absurd idea anybody could ever come up with. Which is why I come down on the side that I do with the strictly materialistic sciences, because they cannot acknowledge anything other than that. overlooking the simple truth that everything you're talking about could only be talked about with consciousness. So knowing yourself as consciousness, to know yourself, to truly know yourself directly, not know about you, right? Or like you'd know about your car, but to actually know you. No human knowledge, no human process, no human system will help you. This very long-winded beginning wraps back to where I started. Us all being in more or less in quarantine. What better way to spend the time than to explore that which can only be explored by you in the quiet of your own heart? Which is always, every week, I get out here and chatter away to just simply invite you to do just that. To invite you to come. Come in. Come deeply within. Leave behind all ideas and see what you find in the realm of pure intuition, of the sense of being without mixing it with anything else, without referring it, using no other reference point other than yourself, other than that sense, that intuitive sense that you answered from when I said, do you exist? And you said yes. That answer came from somewhere that is not mixed, that has no external reference point. It is self-defined. That is the truth of your being. And that's not something that is acquired. It is something that is discovered. But of course, who's discovering it? Well, the truth is discovering itself. You are the truth that you are discovering. So Rohan, hello. Ran says hello from Cape Town. It's wonderful. Ivan from Bulgaria. Jonathan from South Wales. I'm not going to say Les Signoridone anymore. God be with you again from South Wales. Hi. Hi, Jonathan. Anna Maria says hello to me and everyone. David and Elaine. Hi. During this challenging time, which threatens to pull the mind into fear and anxiety, is now an especially good time to keep repeating the phrase you mentioned a while back. Thanks for everything. I have no complaints whatsoever. Yes. Yes. I think this is a very good time for that as a mantra. That story came from, it's a Zen story about a young monk who, after much diligence, had yet to attain his awakening. And he went to visit a very wise Zen monk, unusually so, a female Zen master in her little hut. And he told her of his predicament, and she said, well, here's what I want you to do. For the next year, no matter what happens, no matter what you think, feel, or see, I simply want you to say, thanks for everything. I have no complaints whatsoever. And you come back and see me in a year. Well, he did. Off he went, did his thing, came back a year later to meet with the Zen master. And he says, I've been doing what you told me to do over and over again, and still I haven't gotten anywhere. And she says to him, thanks for everything. I have no complaint whatsoever. He got it. Thanks for everything. I have no complaints whatsoever. J. Krishnamurti was once asked, what's your secret? Because he's, this very a luminary, one of the great sages of the 20th century. I actually have the great privilege of doing a retreat at the Krishnamurti Center in Canada, which I'm going to be doing again this summer, depending on all the stuff that's going on. But somebody asked him, "What's your secret?" And he said, "I don't mind what happens." It's kind of a different way of saying the same thing. Thanks for everything. I have no complaints whatsoever. How about that for a mantra? Yeah. You know, we don't know what it takes to drive us into the space where that ultimate final awakening can take place. There's no rules to it. There's no process. There's no strategy. There's no planning. There's nothing you can do to facilitate it, speed it up, slow it down. There's nothing you can do whatsoever. You're in a state of voluntary or involuntary surrender, one way or the other. There's a beautiful statement from Steve Jourdain, a very little known, fully awake dude. He's talking to somebody. He says, I can show someone where the door is, and I can show them how to knock. But there's no causal connection between you knocking and that door opening. However, if you're standing there knocking, you're in the very best place you can be to see it when it opens. So this to surrender means that you are allowing life to do whatever it needs to do to bring you to the ultimate realization of who you really are. Because remember, the thing that keeps us from realizing who we are our attachments and our aversions, the things we want to get, grasp, and hold, and the things we want to push away, avoid, or get rid of. Those two energies blind us to what is here. It's always seeking something or avoiding something. When you say, thanks for everything, I have no complaints whatsoever, you have waylaid that entire thing. You've put that aside. And what that means is, if your desire for truth is sincere, if this is truly, truly what you desire, the moment that desire arises in you, your life is no longer your own. You'll want it to be, because oftentimes when we first get that desire for truth, we have this idea of all the wonderful things it's going to bring to us, right? We seek ye first the kingdom of heaven, and all these things shall be added unto you. And so we forget the first part, seek ye first, and then we go right to all the things we want to have added. The reality is that character, mentality, emotion, all these things have to be brought to the place where that surrender can be complete. You know, traditionally, the kind of teaching we're here, the kind of things any of the true non-dual teachers you'll see on YouTube or any other places, before you ever got to hear that kind of engagement in a lot of traditions, you were apprenticed to a master for 12 years. It wasn't like that so much in Zen, but still, you ground, you pounded rice, you made food. I mean, you paid your dues, as it were, because it was always recognized that there was a preparation of heart and mind that was required. Now, saying that, ultimately, even that can be put aside. That was the whole point of Zen, that it didn't require that. The Theravada, the Tibetan approach, right? 30 years doing anything. I mean, very, very patient. Zen was that of sudden awakening. But even the sudden awakening takes some preparation to be able to let go. And it really is that. We're not practicing being who we are or trying to become who we are. We're letting go of what we're not. We're becoming increasingly wise and adept at seeing through what we thought we were. You don't acquire who you are. right? You don't acquire the knowledge of who you are. As I was saying earlier, it's not that kind of knowledge. You lose all of the knowledge that you thought you were, and the reality of you simply shines resplendently. It just appears. And that appearing is what's called self-realization. So wasn't planning on getting off quite in that direction, but I hope that kind of adds to the whole sense of this. That's the spirit of that phrase. Thanks for everything. I have no complaints whatsoever. Is such an antidote to the normal way our minds work. Right? You're complaining about I don't want to have this and this shouldn't be happening, and our government doing nothing, but we don't want the economy to collapse. Right? Thanks for everything. I have no complaints about anything, including that. Right? Let it collapse. We can't control it anyway. People in power think they have control. They're totally deluded. We're not controlling anything. This everything is the unfoldment of the reality of your being and the reality of our shared being. And it just simply happens to appear one apparent being at a time. And they are apparent beings. There really is only one of us here. So thanks, Dave and Elaine. Hope that was a useful little digression. Rohan, quite appropriate slip up. Advaita Vedantana, seeing through the window of the mind. Yeah, yeah, that's right. I guess that was a good Freudian slip. And there's actually a great speaker, a brilliant lady that I like to listen to, Vandana Shiva. I think that's why I slipped up, because I really enjoy her. She's not a non-dual teacher, but just a brilliant one with a huge heart. So yeah, we're seeing through the veils of the mind. But when we see through the veils of the mind, we find that we're not looking through the veils of the mind out there to anything. And in fact, when you really see, you realize nothing can veil it, because you're looking at the veil. Your vision is always clear. Even if there's apparently a veil there, who's aware of the veil? Is the one aware of that veil actually veiled? No. The mind has got to draw us into a sense of identity that says, oh, I'm veiled, right? Because suddenly I feel confused, or I feel out of sorts, or I feel afraid, or something like that. And the mind, oh, I'm not seeing the self. Sight only belongs to the self. Well, who's seeing what then? Are you not aware of the fear? Are you not aware of the sense of identity? You're not aware of the veil? Who's that? Isn't that you? I mean, it's not somebody else aware of it, right? It's so subtle. It is so subtle, and it is almost laughable when it begins to dawn on you. But this is one of those moments. I just recently heard Muji talking about it too. The moments when you're like right there, and it's a subtle thing, and it's almost like the mind just kind of blanks out, right? It doesn't want to hear that, right? But this is the moment, right? This is just the threshold to nirvana. You're never blocked. Your vision is never clouded. You see clouded vision, right? The idea that somehow spiritual awakening means everything is going to be wonderful and beautiful and rose petals everywhere and angels singing and the like means when there aren't roses, there's thorns and there's rocks and you don't have any shoes and the angels are bitching and not singing, that somehow something's wrong. No. You look at the sight, the seeing itself. Notice that's never stopped. Seeing is consciousness. You're always that. And whether it's complete chaos in front of you or complete bliss, it's that which it's in front of has remained absolutely unchanged. That's you. Everything else is the experience. It's like the clouds in the sky. Sometimes it's beautiful blue sky, completely clear. Sometimes beautiful puffy white clouds just gently going by. Other times huge storms and tornadoes and hurricanes. But they all pass. And what's left? The sky. Has there been any trace left of it? You know, has the storm come through and signed its name? You know, tornado was here, gone. But but the sky remains untouched. You always remain untouched. I just have to get you to, when I use the word you or you use the word I, that I refers to the seeing, to the knowing of the thing, and not to any thing that is known. I hope you follow that. Um, uh, that was all on the slip of the ventana, right? Ventana. Yeah. That's right. Spanish word for window. Max. Hey, Max. My mind constantly wants to come up with things like there is no me, but it is my mind telling me this. Can there be an ending to this? Of course. When you discover it as a felt and directly intuited fact, right? But now don't discount this, okay? The very fact that you can even grasp the possibility of there being no me, even seeing a little bit of how the sense of identity is a construct of the mind, even though it's very, very, very active within the system, just even the sense of seeing that, well, yes, you can say there is no me, and it's truthful, right? So don't think this is just your mind telling, because your mind isn't going to come up with that kind of stuff, right? You've had an insight into that, and the psychological mind or the ego simply kind of grabs a hold of it to try to use this non-dual knowledge to substantiate itself once again. So now it's, oh, I have non-dual insight. So again, it's just very flattering and the like to the ego. But don't discount the fact that the only reason that thought can appear to you and have some meaning is because you felt the truth of it. Because it is true, right? It just hasn't completely sunk in. It hasn't become as experientially true for you yet as it will. That's the only problem with it. So your mind's not coming up with it because it is true, right? Right. But little by little, we're just going to push it more and more deeply, so that becomes experientially true and not just intellectually true. But don't discount the intellect. People always say, "Well, I get it intellectually, but I don't diminish it like that." Because 99,909 people out of 100,000 don't ever even have that thought. What do you mean there is no me? Of course there's a me. This is the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard. Next YouTube channel, right? I see them, right? I see them come up. I have my little number or how many people are visiting. I say, go, whoa, just lost 2. Right? So this isn't, the very fact you're here, you'll sit here for the whole 2 hours listening to me, means it is in your heart, right? But this may take some time for it to completely move south and colonize the entire system. Ponder it. What does that mean? What does that really mean? There is no me. What does this mean? Because obviously I exist, right? I can't say there's no me. That would mean I don't exist. But we already covered that, right? If I asked you exist, you'll say yes. It's intuitively obvious that you exist. But as what? So when we use that word, there is no me, what's that me referring to? When we dig into it, when we really inquire into it, honestly and deeply, we discover that me is referring to a thought and not to the consciousness that is perceiving even those words, there is no me. Now, eventually that sense of consciousness becomes so much the real me that those words become increasingly true. Of course, there's a you, right? There's no personal you. There's no individual you separate from everybody else. And the me we normally think of as myself is in fact simply a habit of thought. When you go look for it, you can't find it. It's just a thought. It has no more substance to it than an actor in a play or a cartoon character or a character in a movie. It's no more real than Luke Skywalker. Yeah, we can talk about Luke Skywalker all day. Some people do, actually. So don't let the mind say, oh, it's just the mind. You don't know what you're doing. Because you can see how the mind wants to just keep drawing you back into that sense of identity as someone trying to attain awakening rather than the reality you are the awakening. You are the awakened one. That's who you are. That's a realization. It is not an attainment. Buddha was once asked, have you attained? He said, I cannot say that I have attained because I have attained. He took the name Buddha, and at very first, the Four Noble Truths is regarded as his first sermon, but somebody noted after his awakening, after his full enlightenment, somebody just kind of noticed this rather disheveled. I mean, because he was still completely dirty. I mean, he hadn't washed or stuff. I mean, right? But they just noticed the glow that was arising from this guy. And somebody asked him, "Who are you?" And he said, and he answered, and that was the first time the phrase was used. He said, "I am the Buddha, the awakened one." And that's what the word Buddha means. One with a capital O. It does not mean one who has awakened, like there's a bunch of different people awakening. It's the awakened one. The one is awakening. That one awakening is manifesting itself as millions of us awakening. But there's not millions of us awakening. There is one awakening to itself. So that's the true me. And it's that is your real identity. And it is that is recognized. There is no me in the world. There's no me in thoughts. A thought isn't a sentient entity. Only the consciousness beholding a thought is a sentient entity. That's the reality of your being. But that being is not personal. It is the impersonal, infinite, boundless beingness itself. Jeff Jacques, is that how I pronounce it? Jacques or Jacques? Because I think it's Jacques. Not quite sure how to pronounce it, my friend. Hi, GP. Last night I woke up with the thought the ego self is made of the past and made for the future. So what use is the present for this ego self? None. Absolutely correct. Matter of fact, in the present moment, it doesn't exist. Without a memory or an expectation, an anticipation, it doesn't exist. The mind is nothing but thoughts, right? There is no mind. There is no ego. That is, as an entity. There is only, the ego is simply a word for a pattern of thoughts. And those thoughts are always based on the past. They're always a memory, right? Without memory, I mean, you wouldn't know your name. You wouldn't know your gender. You wouldn't know anything about you whatsoever. You'd still be here, wouldn't you? So all of that knowledge is part of the knowledge that Vedanta puts an end to. In the present moment, there is no ego. There's no mind. It doesn't exist. Which is why oftentimes when I will do a meditation, especially early on, meditation before people become more advanced, I'll start people with just putting their attention in their body. Now, of course, so spiritually we want to transcend the body, and the body isn't real and all that. It's like, yeah, get a grip for a second. By putting your attention in the body, what you're really doing is you're putting your attention on what is happening right here in this moment. The human nervous system is just like an animal nervous system, right? They only know what's happening right now. Am I hot? Am I cold? Am I hungry? Am I full? Am I tired? Right? There's no was I tired or will I be tired later, right? Is there danger? Is there not danger? Everything is absolutely immediate. So when your attention is really focused in the inner sense of your inner body, the energy field of your body, your mind naturally becomes quiet because the mind doesn't exist in the present moment. The body only exists in the present moment. It has nothing to do with past or future, which is why you can see that the past and future don't exist. They are a fabrication of the mind. The mind, just a memory. And what is a memory? It's only a thought. Matter of fact, we don't even know if the memory is real. There's a thought that pops up, and then another thought that says, that's a memory. Well, where did that come from? Is it a memory? We don't really know. Matter of fact, a lot of the stuff I've seen, what we call memory, are tiny little snippets of things that pop up, and instantaneously the mind in the present invents a story about those snippets and creates a past. We actually have no idea what the past is, or even if there was one. There's no way you can leave the now, go back and check, right? Because you take the now with you. So the past is a fabrication. It's made up. We don't have any idea if it even exists, right? Actually, we do. It doesn't. Outside of our thought, where is it? Outside of your thinking about it, us talking about it as a linguistic object, right? And that's all we're doing. We're talking about something linguistically, right? So there's a word for it, but show me the thing that this is a word for. Waiting. You can't, right? It has no reality. Same thing with the future. Show me this future, right? But the mind is forever ping-ponging back and forth in between the future. But where are you? You're not in the past and you're not in the future. You're right here. So, the purpose of meditation is to simply is to withdraw attention back to the present moment. Because the attention is running off into these imaginary spaces, even an imaginary present, right? The picture of what the world is supposed to be like now. Complete fabrication of the mind. So the ego is a thought, nothing more. That thought believed to be myself. In the believing of it, you create the experience of being someone, being a person, being a finite separate entity, even though there isn't one, because that's the power of consciousness. It basically creates a world, gets inside that world, and lives as if that world is true. But it isn't true. It isn't real. It can't actually make it real. Right? Nothing can make truth real or false. Somebody, somebody just because the people who have made a donation, I do invite. I sent you the link this morning. You feel free to click on it and join me, and I'm happy to bring you in the stream. We can actually dialogue a bit around this. Somebody did connect, but it appears as though while you're on the screen, you don't have a microphone connected. That link does not work on mobile devices. You have to be on a desktop or a laptop. It has to work on a PC or a Mac. It doesn't work on Androids or iOS devices, unfortunately, because you're actually going to come into my little virtual studio here. So anyway, thank you, Jeff. It is a deeply profound insight. Now, what you do with that is you notice how our habits of thought are always trying to make a reality of the past. They're trying to make our memories real, as if this is absolutely what happened, and thus create suffering in this present moment. The ego as a thought has to be constantly replenished, right? It's like the image on your computer screen. We don't see it, but the screen, the screen is made up of thousands, tens of thousands, in some case 4K, hundreds of thousands of little dots, right? The dots just go on and off very fast in different colors, right? So in order for us to have the illusion of motion on this screen, the picture is being refreshed 60 times a second. Right? This is the refresh rate of the ego. It has to be constantly refreshed or it'll just disappear. If that refreshing doesn't take place, the screen just goes blank. Even a still image is the same image just being refreshed 60 times a second. It's just going so fast that we can't tell that that's happening. If it gets down below, I think it's down to around 20 frames a second, you can actually, right? That's where you see things, moving like this. You actually see it happening. And so that sense of self has to constantly be replenishing. And you'll notice there'll be times you forget about yourself, right? And all of a sudden you'll remember yourself. Well, it just came back, right? Every night we dream and you create a new ego, a whole different circumstance, different person, different body. And then every night we also have this period where the entire thing goes into abeyance in dreamless sleep and there's nobody there at all, just you. So very profound. Thank you, Jeff. Jacques, or Jacques. I love to know how to pronounce that. Oops. Oh, there we go. Mary, I had a person tell me that my intuition was nothing more than my mind movies and my conditioning. I do know the difference between mind and I do know the difference between mind and intuition because intuition comes from a very different place in me. Intuition comes to me in a knowing without words, and then a deeper understanding takes place in me. And once I speak it, I see that then it sounds like just words. Yeah. Somebody who is convinced of the materialistic model is going to interpret everything from the point of view of the materialistic model, in which case there is no intuition. There's no real creativity. It's just one particular mind happens to be reorganizing things better than another. But that hardly explains a Mona Lisa or a David or a Beethoven's Ninth or a B.B. King or a Beatles, right? I mean, it's a very paltry explanation for something so profound as that. Instinctively, just looking to your own self for confirmation, we can sense clearly a different quality between some thought that is the mind, which will always be some kind of a rehashing of the past, and a fresh inspiration. Everybody can tell the difference between inspiration. There's just the materialist believes that what we call inspiration is coming from the brain, right? But that's not my experience. My experience is it simply comes out of nowhere. And oh yeah, but that's the brain. I go, okay, if you believe it's the brain, somebody's going to have to prove that to me. Somehow this brain is producing Shakespeare sonnets. It's producing War and Peace. I mean, really? I mean, to me, it's like saying the radio is producing, a Mozart piano concerto. It makes it's intuitively nonsensical, right? But all I can go by, because I can't. It's subjective, right? I can't objectively prove it. I can't prove it according to the various processes and systems that we have designed, for our definition of truth. So I just go by my own instinct. This feels true. And I've just come to see that because my nature is truth, when I feel something, it's true. That's truth confirming the truth of something. And you're definitely not going to hear that in a college level physics class. So yeah, don't pay any attention to your friend who said that. They, we all have the experience. Everyone has the experience of intuition, but everybody's going to have their way of explaining it or interpreting it or giving what it means. And if you're really a strict materialist, intuition is going to be some kind of a material process and nothing more. Very drab, nihilistic way to live, really. Yeah, I don't get it, but there you go. Rohan, we touched on this before, G, but it's come up for me again, quite literally, in fact. Little, a little emoji I can't quite see from here. It's very tiny. That's the topic of nausea or motion sickness. Unfortunately, I've been very sick today on my birthday. Well, happy birthday, first off. That's the most important thing. Um, nausea or motion sickness. Well, some people get very disoriented, like on a boat in cars and things like that. I mean, the human nervous system really wasn't designed to go buzzing along at 80 miles an hour or 600 miles an hour in an airplane. So things can get a little bit off. I wouldn't make a really big deal out of it. I wouldn't turn it into something that is, some kind of existential problem. What I find is that the more we are willing to be present with what's happening without resistance, that suffering becomes little or none. When there's total surrender to what's happening, suffering goes and it's just the pure experience of what's happening. When it's just the pure experience of what's happening, you recognize yourself as the consciousness that is aware of what's happening. But this consciousness that is aware of it, this witness of what is happening, does not have a preference for what is happening. There's a sense of witnessing where we get that we are experiencing, and that whatever I am, it is different than what I'm experiencing. But initially, that sense of witnessing has a preference. It's witnessing with an interest in the outcome. Right? That's why I emphasize the practice of the yoga of allowing, meditation as allowing everything to be as it is, because that's what you're doing is you're moving out of the pure witnessing, actually the personal witnessing of it, into the pure witness. The pure witness has no preference for what it witnesses. It is just witnessing. Can you see the difference? A witness with interest is still a form of the person. Just keep withdrawing until, there's nausea there. What does that mean? Nothing. It means nausea is there. Nothing more. No story, no memory, no attaching it to something in the past. This happened before, this might happen again. None of that. It's just, what is my actual experience in this moment? And sometimes just that alleviation of suffering will also cause whatever ailment is happening to dissolve. We call that healing. It's not really healing, right? It's just that energy pattern dissolves because it's not being sustained by either resistance or attachment. Right? We get attached to our pleasures, we resist our pains. Without attachment or aversion, the energy will have a very short life. The energy comes up, it does its thing, and it leaves. There may be a reason it's there, maybe an important reason it's there, right? I mean, there are some natural functions in the body that aren't pleasant, right? Smelly, not particularly fun, but necessary, right? These kinds of things are necessary for life. So we don't get the way of them, but they can go on functioning without any inconvenience or annoyance to you. Your relationship to them will determine completely whether it means anything. So when nausea or motion sickness is present, what does it mean? It means nausea or motion sickness is present. Nothing more. The mind will want to project all sorts of meaning and story and narrative, all sorts of things on it. But if you stay right here in this present moment, This is the only thing happening. It has no story. Everything is impermanent. It'll pass. Oftentimes, when the energy of resistance has been completely withdrawn, you find that the energy of resistance has been the only thing sustaining it, and it leaves with the resistance. Not always. Sometimes there's something there that just has to run its course. But you're stepping out of suffering, and that's what matters, right? We're not here to change circumstances. When I talk about spiritual healing, like I was on Friday, I'm not trying to change circumstances, right? I am removing suffering, and the circumstances then take care of themselves. So, okay. Yep. So, does that answer it? Anyway, oh, there was more to it I didn't catch. Anyway, the suffering for me surrounding nausea is far worse than even the worst pain. It's a recurring theme test for me. It's such a primal suffering that appears inherent to the experience itself. Well, it's good that you're seeing that it appears inherent, because it isn't. It has nothing to do with it. Suffering, there is no suffering in life. Period. Life does not suffer. And you watch animals, even when they're in an enormous amount of pain, they are not suffering. Even when things are clearly, obviously, really injured, you won't see them suffering. You could tell. You can see the look on their face. They'll yelp a bit when it like first happens, or some kind of thing comes out, but then there's this surrender. There's nothing in them that resists. Therefore, they do not experience suffering. Right? It's very important to recognize that. Right? So the suffering is always psychological. Always. It is never personal. It is never inherent in the thing itself. And I'm glad that you're seeing that. The mind wants to turn it into that. And that's the habit of thought. But the mind's story about what's happening and what's actually happening are two different things. What's happening is happening. The mind's story about it is a complete delusion. Does that help you, Rahan? Very good. Daryl Sanders. I'm annoyed by the holy rollers. Join the club. Commenting, God will protect you from the virus. Tell that to the thousands who've died. Yeah, but take it easy, man. Take it easy on them. They are suffering from their own delusions. These are the same people who, pray for their sports team to win, or for our army to destroy, the imagined enemy. And the next thing they know, it's because we allow same-sex marriage. God's punishing us now, but it's going to protect me. The absurdity, the level of absurdity and insanity, it really is insane, right? The fundamentalists, they are insane. It's not that the individuals themselves are somehow crazy. The system of thinking is inherently insane. It is egoic, completely egoic. The God they're talking about is the ego, right? The punisher, the enforcer, right? The one who favors me over you, the one who says you suck, you need to be destroyed. I'm good. I'm with the big guy, right? Look at it. It is simply an amplification of the human ego. So is our government. So is, just endless lies. If you look really closely, you'll find people who are inherently afraid, ignorant. They've never cultivated any capacity for introspection. They are victims of circumstance. They're looking to a tribal god to protect them from a life that they're too infantile to engage in. And of course, that is the nature of fundamentalist religions. They turn you into an infant. They're infantile, which is amazing, because the whole foundation of them is that God wanted fellowship, right? And so he created man to have a fellowship with man, but then he wants to keep man forever a child. You don't have fellowship with a child. You have a relationship with a child. I have a wonderful relationship with my 3-year-old granddaughter. We have a lot of fun together, but we're not peers. right? We don't have fellowship, right? I didn't with my sons. I do now, right? They're 45 and 43. So yeah, we have fellowship, right? Because they're full. They're on their own. Uh, they're self-sufficient individuals. So I mean, the entire theological system is completely self-contradictory from beginning to end, which is part of its insanity. But at its root, look really close and you'll find very childish, very infantile, very ignorant, and very frightened people, holding out this hope for, I don't know, the rapture or something where, God's going to come and make everything okay. God's going to come and make everything Republican, basically. It's just kind of weird, the associations that they make. And it hurts when I hear some of these things, blaming people, blaming the most vulnerable for the problem, and kind of putting it on the individual, which is exactly the opposite of what Christ did. Father, forgive them, they know not what they do. But we have to extend that even to them. They don't know what they're doing. They really don't. I don't. These people are not inherently evil or mean or cruel. They have been seduced by uh, a completely unconscious, blind, ignorant system. Even the leaders of those systems, the Billy Grahams and the Pat Robertsons and the folks like that, they've been seduced by the system to the point they cannot see their own ego. The ego can't see itself, right? The ego can't smell its own breath, right? So it's God's will. No, it's yours. It's your will that you love, that you want to think is God's will because it makes you feel like you're doing something special. So anyway, love them. Just embrace them, even as they're nailing you to the cross, because they cannot see. They simply cannot see what you see. But I'm really, really encouraged. I've seen a few TV ministers actually flip the switch on this, saying we had it all wrong. They're not the big guys, the major guys, but some sizable churches like in Texas and the like, saying we had it all wrong. This is not Christian. This is not what Christ wanted us to do. I have a meetup group that in Seattle. Once a month we get together. It's got a non-duality meetup group, and and a bunch of people have all come from that tradition, right, and managed to extricate themselves from those kinds of not just the one. There's several of them. It's Pentecostal and Baptist and Latter-day Saints and Seventh-day Adventists and the like. There's a whole bunch of them. But I'm really surprised at, every time some week somebody shows up and says, well, I was a member of this Christian cult and I managed to get myself out. It's like, wow. So it's happening. The awakening is touching even there. Grace is touching even there. Right? There's no corner of a mind so dark that the light of truth can't reach it. Period. The truth is more powerful than any belief, and it can break open even the most hardened heart, and it will. So, but I do agree. I get annoyed with the cruelty of it. That stings. At just how condemning and cruel they can be towards people who are simply vulnerable, right? As we all are. David and Elaine, thanks for expanding on that phrase, GP. So helpful to keep bringing attention back to this, especially when we're not in control of events, right? Which is all the time. Yeah, don't forget, control is an illusion. We never had it. We never will, and thank God. I mean, the universe would really be in bad shape if I was in control. I'm terribly organized. I can barely handle my own life, right? I mean, in fact, I can't. Right? If I didn't have help, I couldn't do much of anything. So, Rohan, I guess I didn't finish it from before. It feels like it's bound up with the sensations in the body, and even without resistance, I cannot separate the experience from who I am in that moment, like a psychedelic bad trip. Okay, he says, I cannot separate the experience from who I am in that moment. Stop, slow down, Rohan, and look at that. It's a thought that came to you. I cannot separate the experience from who I am in that moment. Is it true? Or is it just a thought that you've believed? Are you not aware of the feeling in your body? Are you not aware of the resistance? Right? You see, the only thing is that you're hoping that if you see yourself separate from it, that it'll go away. Let go of that. As long as that's there, it's going to think that, oh, obviously I can't separate myself from it. You don't have to separate from it. You are separate from it. It's a fact, whether you recognize it or not. It's never bonded with you. It's never become you. It is always simply appearing in front of you. It appears in front of you, and then there's this thought that says, I just can't separate this experience from who I am. It's just a thought. Who's saying that thought? Who's speaking it? And who's it speaking to? The mind can't talk to you. It can't see you. You are formless. As far as the mind is concerned, you don't exist. The mind is only talking to an image it's holding. The mind is talking to a cartoon character. Alas, poor Yorick, I knew him well, right? It is not talking to you. It uses first person. It says, I cannot separate the experience from who I am. What if that thought never occurred to you? What would the experience be at that point? Would it be like a psychedelic bad trip? Or would it have no meaning whatsoever? It's a wonderful little exercise. What if that thought never occurred to me? That thought, I just don't know how to do it. I'm just not getting it. What if that thought, I'm just not getting it, never occurred to you? Would you be not getting it? Right? So the actual thing that's happening has nothing to do with the thought, right? I'm not getting it. If that thought never occurred to you, would you not be getting it? Which means it's not real. It's just a thought. I can't separate the experience from who I am. What if that never occurred to you? Would you not be able to separate it? Of course you would, right? So that thought is not telling you the truth, which means it's not coming from the truth, which means don't pay attention to it. Right? Don't be advertising for the mind. Don't be giving it all this credit. It's just a bunch of thoughts that has to seduce you into thinking that somehow it's true. But of course, even the one who it's seducing into believing it's true is in the mind. And you are the completely untouched witness of the entire thing. That last phrase may just go right by some of you. Checking the numbers, nobody dropped out there, so good. So very good. October Paul, hello, sir. Hi, G. Please help me know how to do the inquiry and turning of awareness on itself. I'm not sure if I'm doing it right. Okay. All right, let's do it. Doesn't take long, doesn't take a minute, right? You can close your eyes if you like. You don't have to. It's often useful. So now we're talking about the inquiry. It's not primarily intellectual. There are different ways I can approach it. But let's look at where is it that we're attempting to inquire into. Now, as a meditation, I have people close their eyes because the moment you do that, your attention, which is always looking for an object to attach itself to, has just been robbed of the vast majority of things that grab its attention, and it has to start looking inward. And now, I invite you then to let the attention begin to focus on just the sensation of your body, of being. Just this, the inner field of the body without a visual to it, just how your body feels. And now step back a little bit further and notice that there's the sensation of your body, that kind of that kinesthetic sense, and there's an awareness of it. Something is aware of that inner field of the body. The same thing is true of thoughts. Thoughts can come, right? Even the thought, God, I wish my thoughts would be quiet, is itself a thought, right? Now, thoughts don't look at themselves, do they? So something there to whom those thoughts are appearing. Something witnessing those thoughts. Same thing is true of any emotion, maybe fear or pride or surprise or any of the emotions. They don't appear to themselves, they appear to something, right? Now, that to which they are appearing is self-evidently you, isn't it? Okay, so now we have removed you. We've brought you out of identification with thought, with emotion and sensation, which is the sum total of all experience. There's something else that I cannot withdraw you from, right? I cannot detach from it. Something that isn't being viewed from a distance. Who is that? Now it's you. Right here, the question, who am I? Because now I is referring to the right thing. If you ask, who am I, but you're thinking of yourself in terms of thoughts and your age, your weight, your height, your gender, any of those characteristics, that I is still mixed up. So the who am I can't penetrate deeply enough. But when you've moved back and you're now aware of being aware, I'm not my thoughts, clearly they're coming and going. I'm not my emotions. I'm not my sensations. I'm something else altogether. What am I? Who am I? That's the inquiry. That's it. And to just be in the inquiry without trying to answer it with the mind, because the mind now is going to try to answer that question, right? Maybe even some really nice non-dual terms. Okay? But that answer cannot come from the mind. It cannot come from anywhere except the same place, right? From where the question is coming. Who am I? Who is this I that is aware of all of this? Well, it's you. It'll say your name. Well, wait, that's just a thought. No, that's not me. That's just another thought that I am aware of. And so what's happening is you are peeling away all of the layers. You're moving further and further behind the lens of perception to the place where, as I said originally, it's not subject and object. You can't know it objectively because you're it. So who are you now? Now that question simply becomes, when you're asking it from there, that's the pure inquiry. Now, there's a variety of ways you can get there. You can open your eyes now if you had them closed. There's other ways you can get there. Any experience you have, however intense, you can ask yourself, to whom is this experience appearing? and immediately you'll be back in that same place. We just get better at removing all the external references, removing external knowledge to the pure experience of your own being with the question, what is this? Who am I? Who is this I? Because clearly there's an I here. Who is it? Is it limited? Look directly at the experience of being. Is the experience of being finite? Is it bounded? Does it have a gender, a color, a location? You can really begin to examine it subjectively. This kind of examination isn't one thing looking at another. This is the non-phenomenal recognition, is what Muji calls it, where you are simply aware of yourself as awareness. But you're not trying to just place non-dual terms. Oh, I am pure awareness. Because you can feel it. It doesn't go anywhere. It doesn't go anywhere. It's still in the head, right? It's true, but we need to have the direct experience of that. So does that help you, October, Paul? It's pretty simple. Right? That sense of being is being. Everything else is added on. So was that close to what you were doing? You said, I'm not sure if I'm doing it right. There are various variations on it, but that's pretty much the one I use. It's very related to, and sometimes I'll do a longer version that's very similar to Muji's invitation, which is another way of approaching it, which is a very good thing for you to check out. Patang. Hello, Patang. Your satsang sessions are like fertilizer that enriches the you mean like cow manure, in which the flower of pure truth will flourish. Thanks, GP. Daryl says, nice, GP. I didn't mean no. Thank you very much. Yeah, I mean it's just so much fun to throw the plant food on the plants, because you're all so much closer than you realize. I mean, you have to realize that the truth's on your side, because you are the self. You really do hold all the cards, right? You already are the self. That's the truth of grace. That is the grace that is appearing. It is what you already are. And what you already are, the pure full consciousness of that, is itself simply discarding everything that it's not. And you're the recipient of it. It's not even really your effort that's doing it. That's why it can be referred to as pure grace, because that's really what it is. It feels like we're making an effort to do the inquiry in that. It feels like that at first, but after a while you begin to realize that it isn't your effort at all. This is simply what's happening, any more than it's your effort that's growing hair or blinking or digesting food. In fact, it is just happening. Consciousness is awakening to itself. God's waking up. This is God's dream. This is referred to as Vishnu's dream in Hinduism. Not your dream, but God's dream. God's dreaming that she's you. You're not dreaming that you're somebody. God's dreaming that she's you. This is how God experiences. And now you're waking up to who you really are. Torah Paul said, wow, thank you, G, amazing. Truly a profound teacher. Oh, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I've had profound teachers. It's pass it on, my friend. Pass it on. Yeah. Ape 108. Francis Lucille says, only inquire when you want to. Otherwise, play poker or whatever. I love Francis. Yeah, you know, I've seen people, right, get so damn serious about their practice. In fact, there was even one spiritual teacher. He eventually got in some trouble for just being for being an asshole, basically, and being really, physically abusive with his students and things like that. Really crazy. I heard him speak once, and he just said this thing. It's like, waking up, you got to take it seriously, deadly seriously. It was like, dude, lighten, go smoke a joint or something. God damn. Yeah, I love that. I love that. You can't make yourself do something you don't want to do. I do these satsangs and like, I want people to fall in love with the process, to become so curious about it that you want to do it. Now, that said, there's a point in your own growth when you recognize that the mind wants to distract you from this and say, I don't really feel like doing it right now. There is, and Francis would agree with that, there is a point at which you go, is this for real? Is this the mind distracting me, or am I really not interested? So I'm really not interested, then no, don't do it. It won't benefit you, right? It's like, I don't know if you've ever had to, you learn to play an instrument, so many kids, uh, when I was growing up, not so much now, were forced to learn how to play an instrument, right? Right? They didn't want to do it, right? Yeah, okay. You practice exactly what you need to practice and nothing more. Did they get good? Heavens no. But I started playing music and I loved it. I couldn't get enough of it, right? I'd play for hours on end. And I was in bands, and every afternoon we were playing. We just loved it, right? We got good, right? Why? Because I had more skills in that. Well, there's a little bit that has to do with talent and inclination and the like. But no, I loved it. So I wanted to do it. So of course I got better at it, right? So it's that kind of it's that kind of thing, right? If it really is feeling really heavy, inquire into it. Use that as an opportunity. But if there's this feeling, oh, I got to do it again, I got to meditate. Oh God, 2 hours a day, got it in meditation. That's why I say, no programs, no plans. In the beginning, it is wise to make some regular time to kind of um, enculturate yourself into it. But you do have you do have to be careful. Anything you force yourself to do, you won't be able to do it for very long. If there's not enough fun and it's all discipline, you will abandon it. Period. So it's really important. It's really important to be able to distinguish it. But also, when the closer you get, the more it's going to want you to not get there. Right? The energy system. Look, it's not an entity. It's not like there's something trying to stop you, but it's like that. It's as if there were an entity, because the sense of a separate self is a mind constructed entity that feels real because the entire nervous system is acting as if it is real. The nervous system assumes that this separate self is actually who you are. And therefore, it's protecting itself from you trying to dismantle it. So that's where that sense would come from. And it's very clever, saying, no, we don't really want to do this, do we? You'd be right at the gates of nirvana, right? And some hot chick will be there, right? Hey, you're pretty cute, right? I mean, I was meditating this morning. It was just deep in meditation. And this thought comes, boy, this is really a good day to get pancakes. And for a second there, I found myself, oh, that would really, I just started to laugh, right? It's like, I mean, it was a good day to have pancakes. Not that I eat bad. Try to figure out where you get vegan pancakes that don't have a lot of sugar. But anyway, you get the gist. It's all a matter of becoming extremely discriminating about what it is you're actually feeling and experiencing. And that will never, ever mislead you. But don't force yourself into non-dual inquiry, because you won't get very far, right? Don't force yourself into anything. You really want to advance in anything, fall in love with it. If you can't fall in love with it, well, go do something else, right? Go find something you can fall in love with. All roads lead to here. I guarantee that. So, Wildcat Drums, my buddy. He's got a great channel, by the way, doing drum. You should put your link in there so people can see it for you, Dale. I think on YouTube, where he does reaction videos for various drummers and like. It's a lot of fun, especially if you're a musician. It's a lot of fun to watch. So I said, I watch Liturgy. If you love your satsangs, just going to master my songs and practice loops. I say no surprise. When I self-inquiry or even plan to later, I feel a sense of true happiness. Yes. Yes. Very good. Yeah. That is the perfume of self-knowledge. There's a sense of being very slow to anger. You become increasingly less reactive. I don't look for the big revelations as evidence of people's awakening. I look for happiness. I look for calmness. I look for a decline in reactivity, where things don't bother you so much. There's just there's conscious choosing rather than reactivity. That's the stuff that's the stuff that I look for as evidence of the deepest kind of spiritual growth. Amy Gant. Hi, Amy. Great to be here. You're back in Las Vegas. Very good. Very good. Kathleen Boyle. Hi, GP. You also have to have Chrome downloaded on your computer to access. I need to put that in the emails when I send it out to all the people who are. Thank you, Kathleen. I forgot. You told me that last time, and then I completely forgot. If you do donate, make a donation to me if you can, and they're all appreciated, no matter how small or how unreasonably large. I keep waiting for that, person to write the check for the rest of my life. Anyway, any donation, I will give you a link so that we can actually talk during satsang. But you do have to be on a computer, not on a mobile device, and you do have to use Chrome as the browser. That's how this works. So I will add that to the email. Thank you for reminding me of that, Kathleen. And if any of you would like to donate, just gpwalsh.com/donate. It's not required, obviously. It just does help, because I'm trying to do as much as I can by donation, especially these days. There's, people are feeling a lot of fear and just uncertainty about financially, especially in the U.S. Other countries are handling it way better than we are, but we're the greediest country in the world. So what can you expect? The wealthiest and the greediest. Jeff says, the feeling of the thought felt more profound than the words. Thanks. You're very welcome. Very good. Very good. Yes. Yes. It's always the feeling, but that feeling of the truth of something is not a sensation, and it's not an emotion. It's something else, isn't it? It's got kind of a different quality to it. But we begin to distinguish that and discern it quite clearly. Daryl Sanders, thanks, GP. I'll take it easy. Appreciate that reminder. Good. Yeah, please do. Jeff says, this sudden arising of the uncertainty of the future has made the ideas, beliefs of the past equally uncertain. And it feels good, strangely. Yes. When it's kind of this immediate payoff, when we really do kind of recognize the position we're truly in, there is a surrendering that takes place. And while we resist surrender because we think it's going to mean our demise, what ends up happening is peace emerges. Because when you surrender, you're really surrendering yourself. And the underlying reality that is maintaining this whole show becomes apparent. And you experience the inherent benevolence of being. And you realize that the malevolence of being is all in the mind. The separate self fighting against other separate selves. And that separate self doesn't exist. Mary Sykes says, love your answer to Daryl. Oh, thank you, Mary. Daryl loves it too, said Daryl. You guys are great. Alessandra, is suffering then the avoidance or resistance to what is? Primarily, yes. The suffering, there's no suffering in life. If you suffer, it is because you are resisting what is. You're either resisting or you're attempting to hold on. You're either grasping or resisting. attachment or aversion. If there's none of that, there's no suffering. Life is just flowing. Right? But the key to this, to understanding it at the deepest level, is that attachment and aversion are the nature of the egoic mind. So you can't train the egoic mind out of attachment and aversion. Do you understand? We have to see through the egoic mind. You, as consciousness, have no attachments, you have no aversions. You can prove that for yourself by noticing that attachment can arise and you can see it. An aversion can arise and you can see it. You can see resistance and grasping, trying to hold on, trying to push away. And it's all being seen from someplace else. They are objects of perception, which means they are not you. You have no aversion, right? The pure witness simply witnesses attachment and aversion and has no preference, even if attachment and aversion are there, right? The intermediate step of you realize that you are witnessing, but you still want to get rid of the attachment and aversions, is kind of the halfway point, the halfway house of witnesses, where the witness still has an interest in the outcome, is still interested in the end of the story, right? Whereas the pure witness is not. It's just pure witnessing, right? Just the word pure. It's witnessing, and nothing else. Right? So you'd even be witnessing the sense of the self that wants to hold on to it. This is really important to understand. The egoic mind is attachment and aversion. You know, the egoic mind is inherently unhappy. You don't make a happy ego. You realize that you're not the ego, and then the happiness that's been there all the time becomes apparent. Right? So when Buddha was talking about the end of suffering, and that it was resistance, it was attachment and aversion. He didn't say get rid of your attachment and aversions. He said the way out of suffering wasn't to change the conditions or change the relationship to the conditions. It was to be free of the sufferer. The sufferer was imaginary. If there's no sufferer, is there suffering? So the one who is, that has the attachment and the aversion, is itself a creation of the mind. Remember, the mind can't see you. It's dreaming a version of you that isn't you. And this version is a sufferer, holding on, pushing away, struggling, even trying to wake up, even going to satsangs, even trying to become enlightened. All of those are images in the mind being witnessed by the ultimate enlightenment. Both the seeking and the seeker are being witnessed by the sought. Alessandra continues, I see the grace of the deer at my front yard. One of them got her leg broken and she was grazing like if nothing. Feeling sorry for her, wanted to do something to fix her leg. Amazing grace. Well, you might be able to do something to fix her leg, but is that a wonder? Yeah, she's not suffering, right? she's and nature will take its course. You know, it'll repair in some way, or I mean, we're all going to eventually end up. Every body is going to dissolve. You're not going anywhere, but your body's going to. It could break something, right? It's a beautiful lesson. Animals are like that. Yeah. So you can see the grace right there, right in front of your face. I mean, that's the point of animals. They're here to inform us, remind us of life without a mind. And so we go, oh yeah, that's right. And my job, in support even of the critters, is to become fully conscious, is to transcend, to not just go back to the animal that prior to mind. Can't do that. We go through the mind and beyond it. And thus all of humanity, including the animals, are uplifted with us. That's our mission. That's why we're here. So I hope that answered your question about suffering and the avoidance. about it, Alessandra. Oh, Dale. Hello from Massachusetts. Oh, you weren't here before? I thought you were. Anyway, Mary Syke said, "GP, hit it on the head with the ego nervous system can cause such disruptions with oneself." Amen. William Brown reminds us, wash hands. 20 seconds. Yeah. The nice thing about virtual satsangs, right? You don't have to do it. We'd have to be handing out sanitizing stuff if it wasn't. If we were here live. Although I look forward to doing live things again. Suketa, hello Suketa. On Mondays, excuse me. I am highly aware. By Friday, I can't breathe. How can I keep this awareness constant? How can it not get caught up in the fear virus at work? Besides meditation, I'm an essential worker. Okay. So okay. Yeah, you're in yes, it's a demanding thing for you because you're completely surrounded by it constantly, and you're in the mental atmosphere of it, and everybody coming in for whatever it is you're providing as an essential worker, they're in that state of mind, and it's very natural for us in our empathy and our compassion to pick up on that. But Mondays, you're fresh out of satsang. You've had time to just kind of withdraw back into yourself and refresh. Spend some time every night. I don't know if you have children or something. When you get home, you have to be with them and the like. But try to spend some time just going back inward, like I did with October Paul, where we did that little exercise, just getting back to the pure sense of being with no reference to what's happening outside. And here's the thing. By Friday, I cannot breathe. How can I keep this awareness constant? This is a subtle thing. And if I speak over your head, please chat and tell me, because I want to meet you where you are. But this is a very common and a very subtle thing that people run into in non-dual inquiry, and that is they think there's these moments of deep clarity, and with it comes a sense of peace, a sense of calmness, a sense of fearlessness, right? You're clear, right? And then it gets clouded. And then the thought comes, I lost it. How do I keep this awareness? Now, the cloud that came and the thought that says, how do I keep it? Are they not being perceived by the very same thing that perceived the clarity? The true awareness has nothing to do with the content. The awareness sees it is transcendent of all opposites. It is beyond the opposites. It is not, oh, I've got it, so now I'm clear and I'm clear all the time. Not true. Buddha got the flu. Buddha got sick. I'm sure Christ did too, right? Runny nose and stuff like that. Right? There's nothing, what happens is the mind arises. It presents a picture of cloudy and confusion. It has a bunch of thoughts trying to say, oh, I'm confused, therefore I don't have it. I've been separated. Just take a step back and notice that that's all being perceived by at the same place. That the confusion and the clarity are both being perceived by something that is beyond both. When that is seen and is recognized that that is who you are no longer subject to the ups and downs of clarity or confusion, which the mind is inevitably going to go through. The end result, there's no attachment to clarity, like holding on to clarity, and there's no aversion to confusion. Got to get rid of it. Got to get rid of it. When confusion's there, confusion is there. When clarity is there, clarity is there. But you're there all the time, and you are beyond both clarity and confusion. You are the absolutely pure, spotless, untouched witness of all of it. This is the subtlety, right? And the spirituality has so often been presented as being, the means by which we get to eternal bliss. But that bliss, it's true, it is, but that bliss is not an emotional or intellectual or psychological state. That bliss is the utter stillness that is completely unmoved by whatever happens out here. So you don't care what's happening in the dream. But in fact, the dream becomes supremely interesting. It's like, oh, that's really interesting. Interesting without any attempt to dictate where it goes. As Nisargadatta said, and you've heard me quote this before, I leave my human life to fulfill its destiny. I remain as I am. So that human life, right, the ups and downs, they don't touch you. The beautiful white puffy clouds going through the sky or the terrific storm leave no imprint on the sky. You are the sky. Let the sense I return home to there. The I am is always the witness of what is happening. Right? And it doesn't matter whether it's confusion or clarity. That's the preference for one over the other is that intermediate step that I referred to, the witness that has an interest in what it is witnessing, whereas the pure witness is simply witnessing. It's unmoved. It simply is being itself. And notice that's really where you always are. You're never actually drawn into the fray. There's only an image of somebody being drawn into the fray, like it's on a movie screen, and you're just sitting there in the audience eating popcorn, right? Depending on the theater, maybe sipping on wine. Maybe you snuck it in. You're not supposed to. So does that cover it for you, Suketa? And by all means, reach out to me, especially if you're in a position where you are encountering that a lot. Tuesday night might be kind of late for you. I'm not exactly sure where you are. Tuesday night, I'm going to be another open forum about healing the world and the like. So the meditation is only to remind you that you're never anywhere other than where you are when you're in meditation. Do you follow that? We're not meditating to get to a state. We meditate to be reminded, that is where I always am. And the more you're identified with that, the more you'll bring that energy into your place where you're doing your work, and the more others will feel it. You will become unmovable, and as a result, you become the anchor for everything going on around you. So that was just so beautiful. Thank you. It says good. Got it. Ape says, I saw a Netflix episode that was trying to explain meditation. It showed a picture of a neutral-looking monk who's completely lit on fire. What's going on here? A rather sensationalized, diluted, and westernized idea of meditation. The West does not understand meditation. In the West, all the things that came from the East, yoga got reduced to what? Exercise. Hatha yoga is one of 8 paths of yoga. You never hear about the other 7 paths. In the US, what does yoga mean? Exercise, right? That is the least significant part of the practices of yoga. And it's the only one we do. That's the way the West works. Everything is very superficial. The same thing happens about meditation. Meditation becomes a stress relief technique, right? And they'll teach it now in businesses, in corporations. Why? So people can wake up? No, for ROI, for return on investment. Because if they're relaxed, they work better. I mean, everything is all of the practices. The aim of which is self-realization, get turned to some kind of external materialistic objective, and so you get things like that. Talking about the monk on fire, completely indifferent to the flame. It is possible for people to develop the kind of yogic powers and that kind of detachment that your body could be burnt and it would die and you wouldn't notice. It wouldn't touch you. Nisargadatta died of throat cancer, right? Had zero pain, right? He even said if any of you were experiencing this, you'd be just absolutely beside yourself with pain. But for him, it didn't exist. It was another place. It was kind of a yogic kind of power. There's the guy who's come kind of poppies all over the internet now, Wim Hof. He's this guy who, through breath control and stuff, he goes out and he climbed Mount Everest with just a pair of shorts on, no shirt. Uh, um, he'd meditate in the snow and things like that. There's been stories of monks that they've put ice on, and after a while, there's just steam coming off of them and the like. In the West, we get really interested in that kind of stuff because we like the whole mirror. The ego loves power, and so this indicates a kind of power, right? Don't pay any attention to it. It has nothing to do with self-discovery. In fact, it will get in the way of self-discovery. The seeking of yogic powers is one of the great deceptions. It is one of the great uh, distractions. It can happen. I've known of some people who woke up and they all of a sudden they had these powers of manifestation and the like, but eventually they didn't even care about it, right? It never took them over. They followed the realization, right? If when you follow the realization, these city powers emerge, great. The teachers that I'm most familiar with, the ones, my own teacher, Muji, doesn't do that. There's none of that. Nisargadatta said, somebody asked him about that. He says, yeah, you can learn that if you want, but why? Right? If on realization these kind of things emerge, and some will, you'll be much more sensitive to people's thoughts. You'll feel people more. All that kind of stuff does happen, but it's like the wake of the boat. Who cares? It's not important. The danger is that when you seek those. When you start seeking those, you are off the path. But in the West, that's what we seek. People seek the peak experience of awakening. They don't really want to wake up. They want heaven. People want heaven. They don't want God. They want the gift. They want the fruit. They don't want the tree, right? So yeah, things like that are just kind of silly, sensational. People love to make movies about it because it kind of blows people away. They get good ratings and they sell ads. That's what it's about. So don't pay any attention to it. Daryl says, GP, you mentioned non-duality means you hold weekly. I'd like to do something like that. Any ideas on getting one going? Well, what I did is I just started a meetup group. Somebody who helps me out, Barbara, who helps me out, she just called around various libraries in the Seattle area and got they will let you have a room for free. And so the second Saturday of every month, I reserved a bunch of library rooms and I would show up. And after a while, I think I've got about 4 people that come pretty regularly, and about 8 to 10 that are there, and people start showing up. I don't know if you are at the level where you're teaching this kind of stuff, so you may want to just kind of if there's people locally that you might want to come in to help to lead it. You can watch videos about it. I know I have done a couple of online there's a meetup group in Adelaide, Australia, that I've come to their meeting via Skype a couple of times. They've invited me, and I've showed up, and I've led a little satsang just for them. They're like, I don't know, 16 hours ahead of me, right? So it's like Saturday afternoon for me. It was like Sunday at 11 for them. Um, uh, but you can do it like that way. Meetup's a great way to do it if you to do it in person. There've been a couple of times where I sat there by myself, nobody was there. I sat there for a while and did something else. But yeah, there's a variety of different ways, different people you could get to come to speak. You could even like have a group and say we're going to read I Am That together, and have a discussion about it. So a variety of ways in which you could get a discussion like this going. If you've got a house where you could host it, that's great too. Sometimes people in a meetup group will have a place they can hold it. That's especially true if you're in an urban area. So that's the way I did it. So just kind of explore, just put it out there. Even before you have your first meeting, you can start a meetup group, and put some things out there. Just people will sign up. Put a meetup group, and people will start signing up. They won't always. Most of them don't come, but people kind of get into, yeah, I'm going to join this one and this one and this one and this one, but then they don't come to any meetings. But that's okay. The word gets out. So Derby says, "Amen." We said, well said, GP. Yeah, thank you. Alexander, why someone refuses to change nutrition even if his life is in danger? Overweight dad, because it's a habit. Nothing more. The human nervous system is a stability seeking mechanism. We want things to remain the same. That's why life has to throw adversity at us, right? If you're in the middle of a good dream, do you want to wake up? And you ever had one of those great dreams, right? It was like everybody's naked, it's really fun, and you wake up, you go, oh no, you try to get back to sleep. You can't do it, right? You want to stay asleep. But when things are horrible, that's when we want to wake up. Life has to throw adversity to us. But the adversity, the suffering of our addictions has to at some point outweigh the reward we get from it. So to ask somebody to change their eating habits, nutrition habits, when they don't really see why, and don't forget, these are habits. They're deeply ingrained, right? That person who's eating nothing but junk food, processed food and the like, right? They've grown addicted to that food, right? They've got sugar and all sorts of stuff. It's an addictive substance, right? And so they'll eat a salad and they won't have the same emotional or physical payoff. So it's a very complex. There's a lot more to it than just somebody go, oh, I should eat better, right? They just invested all of this energy in it. I've known people, friends of mine who had heart attacks, triple, quadruple bypasses, right? And they go back to eating the same crap they did before. My brother had a triple bypass in his early 60s. My father died of a heart condition. I grew up in the Midwest. I became a vegetarian. I eat extremely healthy. And my heart's like that of a 40-year-old. It's like absolutely clear, right? But it was a choice I made. I looked into it. I thought about it. I even struggled with it a little bit. It took me a while to fully it actually took a very significant event for me to completely give up meat. It became so obvious to me. Life just showed me a picture so grotesque, I couldn't do it anymore. Just right in my face, right in the middle of New York City, right? So it wasn't like I was out in the country at some animal processing farm. It found a way to get through to me. So the first thing to do is let go of any desire you have to control or influence somebody else's experience. Everybody's experience has to be what it is. Whatever is, I know his life is in danger, but there's worse things than losing your life, right? We're all going to lose it at one time or at one point or another. And I'm not trying to be flippant about it because I know it hurts. You don't want to see somebody you love creating suffering for themselves. But we don't know, we really can't tell or guess or estimate what it is in life that is going to bring someone to their realization. Because remember, waking up is more important than good nutrition. It's more important than losing weight. And if really, there's been so many people that with a real confrontation of death, when it really sunk in, right, their life changed. They didn't have to think about it. You didn't have to try. It just changed. Something inside just went, and a shift took place. So let go of your fear about it, right? Be really vigilant in meeting this within your own heart and your own mind, right? So that you're not seeing him as somebody stuck in this position. You're not seeing him as somebody getting unhealthy. You're not laying him with mental viruses. That you set him free to be whoever he wants to be. Just give him complete permission to be whatever he wants to be. And give yourself the same permission and just love him no matter what he does. That will do way more than that. That is a nourishment for the soul. And that has the potential to pierce through those habits that are destructive. But it's not a guarantee they will. It's not up to you to decide whether that happens or not. Your job is hold a space in which he feels safe and embraced and loved and appreciated. Because what I've found in my experience is that all of these addictions and maladies and problems and programmed responses and all the traumas that we suffer from have all come from us being stuck in a space that was not safe. By safe meaning not accepting of ourselves as we are. And all of our trauma came because of that. All of the habits, everything grew out of this place of not feeling safe. So the energy not being able to flow in its natural channels gets all distorted, bent out of shape, right? I've often used the example of the rubber ball. Imagine a rubber ball, and there's this invisible fist around it, bending it out of shape. It can't roll, it can't bounce. For all intents and purposes, it's not even a ball anymore, right? It doesn't matter how much ball therapy it goes to or how many ball retreats. It's just going to say, well, rolling and bouncing, it's just not for me. But the reality is, the only thing you have to do is release the grip. And what happens? The natural resiliency of the ball will automatically spring back into its natural shape once the environment is no longer squeezing it, right? So in the courses that I teach inner reconciliation, that's the whole point, creating the safe environment. When the nervous system detects it's safe, it begins to drop the defensive, destructive behaviors, and the natural expressive behaviors begin to emerge because it's safe for them to do so. It's just the child expresses itself, the tribe, smacks them down because of it. So the natural expression of the child becomes suppressed. I can't be myself. It's dangerous to be myself in this environment. That's the source of all trauma. That's the fall. That's the end of childhood. That out of that is what is created the separate self. That's where it comes from. So what do? What's the solution? Right? Hey, fix yourself. I mean, that's all self-help does, right? Is try to now fix that, right? Which is sending exactly the same message to the nervous system as you got in the first place. There's something wrong with you. You got to get fixed. So get rid of that. Create the safe space. I love you. There's nothing wrong with you. Do whatever you want. I support you 100%. There's nothing wrong with you. Nothing you could do can make me not love you. And just be that safe space. Just watch what happens, but have no vested attachment to what happens. Okay? Let him go. Let him live. Let his life unfold as it needs to unfold. It's not up for any of us to determine how that should go. Let's see how we're doing on questions here. Are there any types of jobs that yogis shouldn't do? Probably Wall Street brokers, politicians. Um, anything that by its nature seeks to hurt others to benefit for itself. Yogis simply won't do that. They won't be drawn to it. Don't worry about it. I know you well enough that you will not be drawn to anything that isn't appropriate for you. It simply won't have any appeal. So, simple as that. It's not really appropriate to say you shouldn't do this, and this, because it's not the thing you do, but the heart that's doing it that makes the difference. Right? That will either turn it into nirvana or samsara. It'll either make it noble and life affirming, or it'll make it ignoble and life destroying. Right? I mean, there's nothing really wrong with politics, right? There's nothing really wrong with representing the interests of people working together for the common good. But when it's not for the common good, it's for the benefit of the few, right? It has simply distorted itself. That is a bastardization of what it actually is. So the thing itself isn't at fault. There are a handful of people who are there because they really want to serve, and they have not been corrupted. The vast majority have been corrupted. So you see, it's not the thing itself. So you can't say, I shouldn't do that, because a yogi wouldn't do that. It's like, how would a yogi do this? Right? What do I bring to this that will make it a divine manifestation? Right? You will determine what the quality and character of that job. It doesn't do that. That's just a form you take momentarily, right? But you'll be in that form, and you'll be giving that form life. Jeff says, I have no complaints. Complaints still arise naturally, but they also naturally fall away. Perfect. It's as if allowing or accepting them is the same energy that allows their releasing. Thanks for this, man. Oh, you're quite welcome. Yes. Yeah. People can have startling revelations, just crystal clear on the truth, and then what happens? Doubt starts to arise. Now, if you think that doubt is you doubting rather than just doubting thoughts, you're going to doubt your revelation. You're going to doubt your own insight. Same thing is true. I really don't have any complaints, but then a complaining thought arises. Well, of course, there's habits there. It's in the atmosphere. People do it all the time. You think, oh, God, he shouldn't do that. And it arises. When you see it, you go, oh, there it is again. Now, if you make a deal out, oh, I shouldn't be doing that. I'm a spiritual guy now. I shouldn't be doing that. You've given it a new story. Now you're the spiritual guy who shouldn't be complaining about this or that. But if it's simply a thought that's arising, and there's nobody there to take ownership of that thought, where does it go? Poof. Might hang out for a bit, trying to get your attention. Hey, over here, over here. But if I can't get your attention, what happens? Poof, gone. Yeah, that's how it works. Yeah, isn't that an amazing power? The power of doing nothing. It's phenomenal. What do? Nothing. Just watch it. Yeah, just watch it. Because your attention is the energy that sustains everything. Without your attention, nothing exists. Dervish says, yep. Dervish, is it true from Master Sufis that told me observing your ego every minute is true meditation, a constant meditation? Speak for Master Sufis. There's only a couple of Sufis I actually know. And that's not the sense of it. Observe your ego when it's there. You can't observe it every minute because it's not there every minute. The ego is not a real thing that's there all the time. There's a thought that says, oh, it's there all the time, but that's just a thought. And that thought isn't even there all the time. The ego is not continual. It is simply a particular kind of thought, the thought of I, that arises and then subsides, right? There's oftentimes when there's no ego present. If you're in the middle of a movie, right, and it's really exciting, you're totally into the movie. The ego is not there. You're up there on the screen. You're into the story, right? So the ego's not there. What you do observe, what is worth observing every time you think of it, is yourself, because that is always there. That is the sense of being, right? And bringing your attention back to, yeah, the sense of being, little by little, it just kind of sinks into that it's always there. It's not just there when you look for it. I mean, you look for it and you find, oh yeah, it's still there. Okay, no problem. Eventually, you don't even need to look for it. You're it, right? What's there to look for? You're simply it. That's where it sinks in. So it becomes effortless, because it is effortless, right? It is supporting you. When the ego arises, when a thought comes up, you get so you can sense that this one has kind of a bad smell to it, right? And that's all it takes. Oh, so you don't go with it. You don't follow its narrative. You don't get dragged into its story. You just say, thank you. And you're off. You withdraw the attention. It falls away. So it's not like you ignore it, right? Oh, get away. Or, oh my God, it's the ego. Ego, get away, right? You're saying, oh, there it is. What is it? Nothing. It's a thought. Nothing more. And then it has nothing for it to grab onto. You've removed all the Velcro from you, so it can't stick, right? It's like Alien, right? Right? It's gone. There's nothing there for it to stick to, and therefore you're simply seeing it. And that seeing is your superpower. That discrimination is your superpower. Daryl, GP, coming out of 55 years of Christianity, I'm experiencing a lingering sense of monotheism that's hard to release. I know it's true, but sometimes it's difficult to deal with. Well, let's not just throw it out. Let's transform it. I don't have an issue with monotheism, because monotheism is one God. Well, it's true. There's only one of us. The thing is that they make one God and then a bunch of us, right? So it's the duality of it. But if you see God as your very being, right? Like in the meditation I did with October Paul, where you remove your attention from everything, there's just a sense of being. That's the I am. That's God. The religious name for it is God. The street name is me. Same thing. It is beingness itself, right? And there is only one. That's the monotheism. Thou shalt have no other gods before me. That's actually what it's pointing towards. Before me. No more gods be other than me. But not me, the person. That's the ego. Me, that sense of presence, that sense of existence. Now, look at that sense of existence. Did you create it? It just is. Right? You didn't make it, you didn't invent it, you didn't dream it up. So that it's pure grace. It's not like something you can take credit for. This is God equals beingness. As Joseph Campbell said, God is just the metaphor for the self. So in that sense, that monotheism is accurate. What happens is that the sense of it, the ego sees the monotheism and creates the duality. Oh, God, and then me, right? And then it makes me, now I'm lined up with God. I'm following God's rules, so I'm going to heaven, but you're not, right? And I'm going to make sure you're not. I'm going to beat you over the head until you don't. And so it's a distortion of the genuine monotheism, which is also pantheism, right? Which is omniism, right? It all converges into the one being that animates all forms. So every form, it's it's an infinite number of faces, all with the same soul. You could put it that way. Dervish says, we seek for the oneness in God, but our ego, it's all scattered. We are scattered. We are not scattered. The ego is scattered. The ego is not stable. It's not consistent because it's only a belief. And beliefs require you to believe it. And your beliefs change all the time. So the ego, being a thought, is not inherently stable. Truth, not being a thought, being truth, is inherently stable. It's always the same. Truth does not become false. It doesn't change. it doesn't fluctuate. Right? That's why it's truth. That is truth. That is reality. So it's never scattered. And what is truth? It's not an abstraction you know. It is what you are. That sense of being. That's the truth. Living truth. Truth is not an idea. It is the living presence. It is the self, the soul, the spirit, the animus. It is the Buddha nature. It is Christ. It's consciousness. It's the anointed one. It is you. Ape says, makes sense. I got suspicious when they were talking about an attack of empathy caused by meditation. Odd Western choice of words. But they're trying. Yeah, they are trying. Yeah, they are trying. You know, when I was growing up, probably when I was your age, nobody, I didn't heard of meditation. You know, a few little things like out on the West Coast and the East Coast. I grew up in the Midwest in the United States, right? I never saw any of those things. Meditation, what the hell's that? Right? Yoga, what's that? Right? So, I mean, a lot has happened in the last 50 years where this is common parlance now. So, but, you know, it takes a while for the genuine truth of these things, the real meaning of things, to penetrate a rather primitive, immature culture. And Western culture is quite immature. The U.S. especially immature. It's downright childish and willfully ignorant. So it's not going to be able to grasp the deeper meaning. So you get this, an attack of empathy. What the what are you talking about? But you know, they don't know what they're talking about. Father, forgive them. They ain't got a clue. Right? Let's see. I'm going to try to get to the rest of these. Got a few more minutes. Daryl Sanders says, preach, GB. Amen, brother. Amen. Anja, love the satsang. Thank you very much. Thank you from Alessandra. Oh, it's Sab. Infinity Coaching. Sab in Paris. Love this talk about there being no past or future. Nice to get that and clearer, and how important it is, if anything is important, to be leading good lives right now. People ask me about past lives and stuff. I said, what about this one? What are you doing right now? Forget the past one, right? Yes, you know, we can talk about incarnation, that kind of stuff, but does it really matter? Does anything matter other than right now? How you are living right now? Maybe there might be some use of understanding past lives if there's some kind of uncontrollable impulse that is creating suffering in this moment. Maybe, right? But most of the time, the past and the future are nice ways of simply not being here and now. And being here and now is all we got, right? Be here now. What is the most loving thing you can do today? My dear friend, Martin Root, it's got an organization called Heaven on Earth. You can look at projectheavenonearth.org, I think, or .com. He's collecting stories from all around the world of people having heaven on earth experiences. And it's beautiful. And it's just utterly stunning. And he has these 3 questions. One is, what is heaven on earth to you? When's the last time you experienced something you would consider heaven on earth? And then he says, what can you do in the next 24 hours to bring about heaven on earth? I mean, how simple? What's one simple thing you can do in the next 24 hours to bring about heaven on earth? I mean, that's brilliant. I love the guy. We have the same birthday. We've just kind of become soul brothers. But you can get it, right? Isn't that just what simple thing can you do in the next 24 hours to bring about heaven on earth? That's being in the now, right? What can you do right now to bring about a greater sense of love to the world that really, really needs it? October pause. This is the best answer to my question about work that I've ever heard. Thank you, GP. It's getting later. I tell you my story about working in the 7-Eleven in the midnight shift in the middle of winter in the Barrington, Illinois, after my ex-wife had run off in the middle of the night with my children, and it was Christmas time. I'll tell you the story about how I discovered why that's true. Brilliant insights. Thanks, GP, from John. Thank you, John. Jeff, awareness is the ultimate safe space. You evoke that feeling sense with your satsang vibe. So much gratitude for this demonstration of flowing awareness. And it is our flowing awareness. Right? This is a satsang is a communion with truth. It is, the word sangha, which is, the community of truth, right? Come from the same thing. Satcha is the word for truth. So satsang or sangha all come from that same place. So it is a community and a communion with truth. So we make this atmosphere, and it's so powerful. October Paul says, I want to teach this message. Should I stay away from that until I become enlightened? That's a really, really good question. What I would say is, don't jump into it. Okay. I used to think enlightenment was this moment. I now know better. Right. It's like, no, what is it? Who knows? I have no idea. I have no idea what that word even means anymore. All I know is the flow of grace, right? So here's what you do. Inevitably, when we discover something that touches our hearts, we can't help but want to share it. Now, that is a moment in which the residue of the ego would love to jump in and become the teacher. Now, it's going to happen all along the line. So what I urge you to do is just is to sit with that desire, right? Don't be in a hurry, right? Don't try to make anything happen. Sit with the desire so that it becomes it becomes purified, right? Little by little, you'll see more clearly what's ego, what's true, what's not, and an energy will arise. That's what Christ was pointing to when he told the parable of the wheat and the chaff. Those of you who might not be familiar or are, I'm going to tell you again. The parable is, there's a man who had a field of wheat, well off. He had a nice crop of wheat, but he had enemies, right? And in the middle of the night, his enemies came in and they planted tares with all the wheat, right? Now, tares are weeds, right? And so after a while, they started growing, and the workers of the man came and said, hey, it's full of weeds. They've obviously been planted. They're everywhere. Should we pull them up? And he says, no, don't pull up the weeds, because if you do, you're going to pull up the wheat with it. He said, wait until the harvest time. And then we'll be able to see clearly, and we'll separate the wheat from the tares. We'll take the wheat and put it in the barn. We'll take the tares and we'll burn them. So let yourself cherish the desire and let yourself grow in grace. Don't make it a personal intention, a personal achievement. Let life take you there, right? It will, right? Eventually. But it's going to It's going to put you through things. It's going to squeeze some stuff out of you. It's going to scrape off some stuff. You know, when a snake sheds its skin and becomes a whole new thing, it just doesn't kind of slide out. Oh, nice, here I am in the new snake. It's stuck to it and things like that. Snakes will actually crawl through rocks, through tight spaces, through branches and rocks to scrape the rest of the skin off. So let yourself be scraped, right? Just cherish the desire, and it works. It'll work. It will. Remember, you didn't create that want, so it's not your responsibility. That which created the want will bring fulfillment to the want. You remain the witness. Whenever it comes to desire and things in life, I tell people you're not the creator of it, and it's not your responsibility to bring it about. You are a midwife and nothing more. Ava says, without my attention, nothing exists. It's so obvious. But thank you so much for reminding me of that today. Thank you for your being here in Satsang. Welcome. Thanks, Ava. Thank you. You are truth, Master. Thank you, Jervis. Thank you. Dervish. Great name. Dervish Ottoman. Strong name. Wow. Blessings, GP. Love to thank you, Mary. Suketa says, haha, it's the ego. It's a fear thought. Get away. I will not try to resist. I will try to let it pass. Also, I will try the watch more than get entangled in others. Fear this week. Brilliant. Yes. Stay as you are. Be you and just watch. You'll see the mind virus is going through. You'll see people's fear. It's all out of ignorance. They don't know what you know, right? Be there. Just be the presence they're all yearning for, right? They all want to feel that presence. Mary has one last question. Why do we need to wait for pandemics or war to help us to be kind? Should we not be kind at all times? Yeah, and most of you people here aren't you? But every one of us, I know I've had shocks in my life. 5 years ago, I lost everything. Lost the divorce, lost the house, lost my business, everything gone. Phone, paper. This has happened numerous times in my life, right? Just when you think, hey, I got it down, that's when the boiling hot soup gets spilled on your lap, right? And suddenly you realize, oh yeah, right. We do. You know why? I don't know. Do we? Yes. There you go. Jeff says, be a teacher who doesn't create students. Oh, I don't want students. I want teachers. Effie. Hello, Effie. Effie from Istanbul. Thank you so much for your guidance. The feeling the separate self has effect on experience makes it seem real. It makes it hard not to identify. What am I missing? Very simple. It seems that way, but it isn't. Notice there's a thought that says, this is hard. If you believe that thought, you believe it into existence. But it makes it hard not to identify. Are you not sitting in the position of someone recognizing the energy of identification? That means you're not it. Keep identifying with that which is aware of the separate self, and it doesn't matter to you what the separate self does. It won't be you anymore. It'll just be this residual. It'll be there for a while. Believe me, it's not going anywhere right away. It'll hook you, but little by little, the hook won't matter. You'll hook and go, yeah, whatever. Take the hook out. And actually, at some point, it becomes valuable. You go, great. I've just been shown another blind spot I didn't know about. Thank you. Thank you. God bless you. So I wish I had more time to go into this, Effie, but I've been at it for 2.5 hours already. So thank you from Istanbul in Turkey. Wonderful. So glad to have you here. Janet, thanks, GP, for another great satsang. Grounded in being all day. No thing, no one, no worries. Thank you for your constant gardening. You're very welcome. I said, preach, man. Daryl. You're blessing. Thank you, Daryl. Can I get an amen? Yeah, wouldn't it be great to be like that? Yeah, that's all the white guys trying to act black. I think it's very funny. You know, I see it. It's very funny. Anyway, thank you so much for October, Paul. Thank you so much. Wonderful. Thank you all, guys. Thank you. So good to be here. Please like and share. Tell other people around about this, and I'll have additional instructions. So please, if you want to donate, happy to have people. I hope that worked for you, Effie. I know it was kind of short, but I I think you got it. If you want to be able to actually have a conversation with me during satsang, I'd love it. But it's kind of my way of enticing people to to help me keep this on the air, and it's good. I've got donations coming up. We're like breaking even, right? It's really good. I don't, as you can see, I don't have. This is the sum total of my living. Right? I don't have a lot of luxury, so you're not supporting a wealthy CEO. All right, guys, love you all. Until next time, namaste.